In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do a linear regression equation on your calculator. So I'm going to use question 4 from the 2008 VCAA Exam 2. So it's the short answer exam. So I've already put the values in here, so I'm just going to find them again. They're in Stats List Editor. You can see here list 1 and list 2. Now the table on the question has arm span and then height. So you actually have to get your independent and dependent variables correct, because you should always type in list 1 your independent variable, your x variable, and then in list 2 your y variable or your dependent variable. The question actually says that we want to predict arm span from height. So means that arm span changes as height changes. So that means height is our independent variable and arm span is our dependent variable. So in list 1, I've put the heights, and in list 2, I've put the arm span. Now it's different on the table. They've got arm span height. I've got height arm span, because it's always a good idea, remember, independent, then dependent. All right, so to do your linear regression equation, which is the same as the least squares regression line, just go to F4 Calc, then go down to Regressions and choose linreg a plus bx. You can do the next one, linreg ax plus b. It doesn't matter as long as you put your values of a and b in the right order. So when we're here, remember x is your independent variable. So my independent variable height was written in list 1. My dependent variable, which is my y variable, was written in list 2. Now the store regression equation just means that you can actually see what it looks like on your graph if you want to. It doesn't matter whether you do this or not. It'll also, if you go into the y equals window, actually tell you what the equation is. So some people might like to read it that way, or just read it from the box. I'll show you what comes up after we've done the question. All right, the frequency can just be 1. Now, your equation is in the form y equals a plus bx. Make sure you always take note, because your values of a and b have to be written in that order. So your equation would be y equals negative 15.63 plus 1.09x. But make sure when you're working with statistics, we don't use the variables x and y in our final equation. We use the variables that they've given you. So in this equation, instead of y, we would have arm span. So arm span equals negative 15.63 plus 1.09 times height. So just make sure you change your values of x and y to be the correct variables. All right, so if I just press enter, what comes up after you've done that are your residual values here. So remember, your residual values are the difference between your actual y values and your predicted y values. So they've actually calculated it for you. Sometimes there's a use for that, but not always. If you have to graph your residual values, then at least they're there for you. You don't have to work them out. Now, as I was saying before, when it stored your equation, if you go to y equals, there's my equation there. It's to quite a few decimal places, so just make sure you do round them to the correct number. But you can see here, there, that exactly the same equation that I read before. So just a few tips. Make sure that your equation is in the right form. Make sure your variables are correct. So in this case, we were using height and arm span. And make sure you type in your values correctly, because this is a short answer exam. If your values are incorrect, so maybe you wrote 154 instead of 155, you will lose marks. So just make sure that you actually enter in the right values in the first place. And that's